Welcome to my official 2024 SEC predictions video. In this video, I will be predicting the 2024 SEC standings from top to bottom. And at the end of the video, I will be predicting the conference championship game for the SEC next season. But let's start off at the bottom of the SEC standings. And at number 16, I have Vanderbilt, and I have them with a 39 record and a 0-8 conference record. And I don't see Vanderbilt winning any games in the SEC next season, let's just be honest. They have been a very bad program in the SEC, and their roster took a big hit this offseason. They lost a couple of their best wide receivers, and they also lost some other players to the portal as well. Clark Lee has had 2 winless seasons with Vanderbilt in SEC conference play since 2021, and he is definitely in the hot seat. They did add some solid transfers, and they have a quarterback battle going on between Nate Johnson and Diego Paiva, but regardless, there is just not a lot to say about this Vanderbilt team. They are not nearly as talented as the other teams above them in the SEC, and I really don't see that changing anytime soon. I expect Vanderbilt to be a really bad team again, and they will likely end up at the bottom of the SEC once again. At number 15, I have Arkansas with a 3-9 record and a 0-8 conference record. Sam Pittman is one of the few coaches in the hot seat next season, and I think they will be a lot better than Vanderbilt is, but I do have them finishing with the exact same record. It's not that Arkansas is a terrible team, but the playing field is very tough in the SEC, and they only went 4-8 last season. But something intriguing about this team is the fact that they brought in Bobby Petrino to be the offensive coordinator. Bobby Petrino was a former Arkansas head coach, and Arkansas does return their top 5 wide receivers from last season, and they added transfer portal quarterback Taylon Green, who should be a solid replacement for KJ Jefferson. The offense does have upside, and it will be interesting to see how the pairing of Bobby Petrino and Sam Pittman actually works. But the defense really fell apart near the end of last season, and I don't see the defense taking big strides next season. Maybe they can upset someone in the SEC or beat Mississippi State on the road. That game is very winnable, but the schedule is difficult, and their easiest conference game is on the road against Mississippi State. So I'm not expecting a great season from Arkansas, and I do have them dropping that game to Mississippi State. They could be a sleeper because of what they have offensively, but I have too many concerns with the defense, and the offensive line was terrible last season. I don't expect Sam Pittman and Arkansas to get anywhere near a bowl game in 2024 because of the schedule. At number 14, I have Mississippi State with a 5-7 record and a 1-7 conference record. Mississippi State is in complete rebuild mode with new head coach Jeff Lebby. Jeff Lebby has a really good track record of producing great offenses from being an offensive coordinator previously. So maybe they have a good year offensively, but Mississippi State only returns 2 starters on the team. They could easily lose the game to Arkansas and go winless in the SEC, and I wouldn't be surprised. But I do think they managed to beat Arkansas because they do have that game at home. They added the transfer portal quarterback Blake Shapen from Baylor. Blake Shapen has thrown for over 5,000 passing yards and 36 touchdowns the last 3 seasons, so I do think he was a solid addition for that Mississippi State offense because he knows the game very well. They also added some solid transfers as well, but this Mississippi State team is absolutely going to struggle next season, and I don't see a way around it. They lost way too much talent, and I do have them at number 14 ahead of Arkansas in my standings. I will say Arkansas has a lot more potential than Mississippi State in 2024 at least, but I'd say Mississippi State has a bit more of an easier schedule, and Mississippi State should either manage to beat Florida or Arkansas at home. Arkansas doesn't have any favorable home games. Mississippi State has a more favorable schedule, and because of that, I have Mississippi State at number 14, finishing with a 5-7 record and a 1-7 record in conference play. At number 13, I have South Carolina. I have them finishing with a 5-7 record and a 2-6 conference record. I do think South Carolina is steps ahead of the teams below them, and this upcoming season is absolutely crucial for Shane Beamer and this South Carolina squad. Injuries and a tough schedule prevented South Carolina from building off of the 8-5 2022 season. The offense really struggled last season, even with Spencer Rattler at quarterback and a first-round NFL wide receiver on the team. But Spencer Rattler and Xavier Legette are both gone, so Lenore Sellers will have to step up at quarterback, but he showed potential at quarterback with limited time last season. He will be the guy to put the burden on his shoulder and try to carry that offense. But he does have some help in the backfield because they added 1,000-yard rusher from Arkansas, Raheem Sanders. The offensive line gave up 41 sacks last season, so the development of this offensive line is going to be crucial for the 2024 season. They did a really good job in the portal at bringing in guys to help in the trenches, and I think this is realistically a team that can make a bowl game in 2024, and it wouldn't surprise me. They only have 5 away games, and one of the away games is at Vanderbilt, which should be an easy win. And I do think South Carolina either manages to beat Missouri, LSU, Ole Miss, or Texas A&M at home. And if they get lucky, maybe they win 2 of those 4 games. But in my case, I only have them upsetting LSU, but they also have a guaranteed 3 wins in the non-conference, and Vanderbilt should be a win. So that would give them 5 wins. Maybe South Carolina gets their 6th win with a win at Clemson or at Kentucky early in the season. Maybe they beat Texas A&M at home. Unfortunately, I do only have them going 5-7, but there is a path to 6-6. I just wasn't brave enough to pick 6 games that they would win, and the SEC is going to be a very tough playing field, and you're going to hear me say that a lot this video, but it's true. I do like Lenore Sellers and the addition of Raheem Sanders, but there is not great depth on this team, and the offensive line has big concerns. So I have them at 13 in the SEC, finishing with a 5-7 record and a 2-6 record in conference play. At number 12, I have Kentucky, and I also have them finishing with a 5-7 record and a 2-6 conference record. I think Kentucky is probably more likely to make a bowl game than to miss a bowl game, and they are probably steps ahead of the teams behind them, but I don't see Kentucky continuing to have 7-win seasons consistently in the SEC. They no longer have a weak SEC East schedule, and the playing field is getting much more difficult in the SEC. I could easily be disrespecting what Kentucky is capable of offensively, but with how solid I think Kentucky will be offensively, I think Florida is a lot better than people give them credit for, and I think Auburn is going to be a really solid team next year, and I have both those teams ahead of Kentucky. And I also think Kentucky loses that game to Louisville. I think Louisville will get their revenge and finally beat Kentucky in 2024. I don't see Kentucky being as competitive in the SEC next season. They did add the running back from Ohio State who ran for over 300 yards. He was the backup to Travion Henderson last season. He should be a solid replacement for 1,000-yard rusher Ray Davis. Brock Vandagriff is also a very interesting quarterback coming from Georgia, but they added some new weapons at wide receiver out of the portal as well. I don't have big concerns with the offense, and the defense is very experienced, but the defense also gave up 29 points a game in the SEC last season, which is not great. I think the defense needs to take the right step forward if they want to have another solid season. They do return 72% of the production from last season, and it wouldn't really surprise me if they made a bowl game in 2024. But the schedule is going to be tougher, and Kentucky is a confusing team to me because I feel like they should be making a bowl game, but I do think the schedule sets up for a 5-win season. They have some new and unproven faces, and I just don't know how much I can trust Brock Vandagriff at quarterback. And losing their running back to the NFL also hurts them. My gut is telling me Kentucky is taking a step back in 2024. They don't recruit that well in the SEC, and I just think they take a step back next season. It's not that I think they're bad, but I think teams like Auburn and Florida are taking steps forward in 2024. And Louisville returns 80% of the production defensively, and they should be good again. And I do think Kentucky finally loses that game to Louisville. So I do have Kentucky at 5-7 with a 2-6 conference record for 2024. At number 11, I have Auburn, and I have them with a 7-5 record and a 3-5 conference record. I really think Auburn is taking a step forward offensively in 2024. Peyton Thorne will be heading into year 2, and he actually got a full spring of practice this year, which he did not get last year. I expect Peyton Thorne to take a big step forward in 2024 at the quarterback position for Auburn. They should also have one of the most improved receiver corps in the SEC. 5-star freshman Cam Coleman should go off this season, and they have multiple other talented freshmen at wide receiver. But they don't just have young guys because they added some great receivers out of the portal. They added Keandre Lambert-Smith, who was Penn State's leading receiver from last season, and they also added Robert Lewis from Georgia State, who had nearly 1,000 yards receiving last season. So there's many new weapons at wide receiver, and the offense should be very improved. The defense was also one of the best in the SEC last season, and it kept them in games with some of the best teams in the country, Georgia and Alabama. Auburn should be a much better team in 2024, and I do have Auburn at 7-5, so maybe that's not a big step forward in the win-loss column. But again, the SEC is a very tough playing field, and the SEC is going to be incredibly stacked next season. Auburn could easily be a team that goes 8-4 and 9-3, and that wouldn't surprise me at all. But I'd say give it another year or two with Hugh Freeze and the Auburn Tigers. Some of the talent on this team needs to develop, and they might just be a college football playoff contender in another year or two. They are recruiting very well in the SEC, and they should continue to get better in the SEC moving forward. And I have them finishing with a solid 7-5 record and a 3-5 conference record for 2024. At number 10, I have Oklahoma. Just like Auburn, I have them at a 7-5 record and a 3-5 conference record. I think Oklahoma is right there with Auburn, but I give Oklahoma the edge offensively, and I have them winning that game because Oklahoma has proven wide receivers and a more talented quarterback. I also think the defense for Oklahoma is trending up with head coach Brent Venables. They are a bit ahead of Auburn when we look at the talent on the roster. But I do think Oklahoma could have a tough year one in the SEC because of the schedule and the fact that they have a whole new offensive line. Oklahoma is still going to be a really good team, but I think they dropped the games against the elite teams in the SEC because Oklahoma has too many questions in the trenches, and there is still growth that needs to be shown there. Oklahoma is a team that could disappoint and miss a bowl game, but I honestly wouldn't be surprised if they won 10 games and made the playoffs because of the talent on this team. Oklahoma is a pretty unpredictable team, but I think they finished with a solid 7-5 record for 2024. Some people might think that's a bad season, but I think a 7-win season wouldn't be terrible for a new team joining the SEC that has a whole new quarterback and a whole new offensive line. Not to mention they have one of the toughest schedules in the whole country. At number 9, I have Florida. I have Florida with a 6-6 record and a 4-4 conference record. And I have Florida winning 4 games in conference play, which actually puts them ahead of Auburn and Oklahoma in the conference standings. I am definitely higher on Florida than most people are, and I really think people are underestimating how good this Florida roster actually is. They returned Graham Mertz for another year. He threw for nearly 3,000 yards with 20 touchdowns last season. He hardly makes any mistakes. He's not a crazy good quarterback, but he is very consistent. They also returned 3 starters on the offensive line, and they have a really good receiving core. Eugene Wilson is back. They added Shamir Dyke from the portal, who has experience playing with Mertz before, so he should be a top target for Graham Mertz this next season. But they also added Elijah Badger, who was Arizona State's leading receiver last season. Graham Mertz has great options at wide receiver, and I know Billy Napier gets a lot of criticism, but we know Billy Napier can produce excellent offenses from his time coaching at Louisiana. Florida also has a very young roster, and they added multiple additions from the portal defensively that should really help. Asa Turner was a big pickup, and he made some great plays for Washington last season. He should help out that Florida secondary. Florida has the talent, and Billy Napier brought in a top 4 transfer portal class. 6-6 wouldn't be a bad season considering how brutal the schedule is. I have never seen a tougher schedule than what Florida has this upcoming season. I don't see Florida being this elite team that wins 9+ games and makes the playoffs, but I really think Florida deserves more respect than what they've been getting because this is a very good football team. And I truly believe that. And I do have Florida at 6-6 with a 4-4 conference record. At number 8, I have Texas A&M. I have them going 9-3 with a 5-3 conference record. And I'm a bit higher on Texas A&M than most people are. I think Mike Elko was a great hire for A&M, and he has taken over a pretty talented roster. I wouldn't be surprised at all if Mike Elko won right away with Texas A&M. Duke went 5-18 before Mike Elko got there, but after Mike Elko became the head coach, Duke showed massive improvement with Elko, and in 2 seasons, Mike Elko went 16-9 at Duke. Texas A&M has a talented 5-star quarterback in Connor Wigman, and he could be really good if he stays healthy. A&M returns a solid group of running backs and wide receivers. Texas A&M also has one of the top defenses in the SEC, and the addition of Nick Scorton should be huge for that defense. Mike Elko and Texas A&M brought in the 3rd best transfer portal class in the whole country. I really like the hire of Mike Elko, and I think A&M has a lot better of a foundation set now than they did before. And I'm not calling my shot, but they have the team to possibly make a sneaky run for the college football playoffs next season. The game to open the season at home against Notre Dame is crucial, but I wouldn't be surprised if Mike Elko and his squad won that big Week 1 matchup. Duke upset Clemson Week 1 last season, and I am sure Mike Elko will have A&M ready and prepared for that game. 9-3 unfortunately won't get them in the playoffs, but I honestly wouldn't be surprised if they went 10-2 because the schedule isn't that difficult. But I do have them at 9-3 with the 5-3 conference record in 2024. At number 7, I have LSU. I have them with the 9-3 record and a 5-3 conference record. I do have LSU ahead of Texas A&M in the standings because I had LSU winning the head-to-head against A&M. And I think LSU is going to be very good offensively once again, but I don't think they have the defense to take them to the college football playoff next season. Blake Baker was a great addition for the coaching staff, and he should help with making LSU more aggressive defensively. But LSU also lost their offensive coordinator Mike Denbrock and a bunch of guys to the NFL. The offense will still be good, but they are definitely going to take a step back, and anything less than a Heisman Trophy winner at quarterback would be a step down from last season. LSU didn't make a bunch of moves to improve the defense in the portal. Even if the defense takes a step up, I don't think it will be enough to win 10 or 11 games and make the playoffs. I think LSU has a brighter future than almost any other team in college football right now. They have one of the top recruiting classes for the 2025 recruiting cycle, and Brian Kelly is one of the top coaches in college football. I think they will be a very good team, but this will kind of be a reset year for Brian Kelly and the LSU Tigers in my opinion. And if LSU wants a chance at the playoffs, we will need to see more from the defense. Offensively, this team will be a lot of fun to watch, and Garrett Nussmeier can definitely throw the deep ball. And Kyren Lacy is set up to take a big leap this season at wide receiver for the Tigers. They probably have the best O-line in the SEC, so that does give them a huge advantage offensively. But I do have LSU at 9-3 with the 5-3 conference record in 2024, which would unfortunately keep them out of the college football playoffs. At number 6, I have Missouri. Yes, I have the number 6 team in the SEC standings winning 10 games, which probably means there are 5 other teams winning double-digit games in the SEC, which is crazy, right? Maybe it is, but I think the SEC is going to be very competitive next season. Honestly, more competitive than it's been in a long time. And I think the SEC is absolutely the best conference in college football heading into next season, and it might not even be close. And I hate to admit that, but anyways, let's talk about Missouri. Last season, Missouri was one of the surprise teams of college football. They won double-digit games and beat Ohio State in their New Year's Six bowl game. If Missouri takes a step forward in 2024, they might have a legitimate shot at going undefeated because of the favorable SEC schedule. Missouri returns Brady Cook at quarterback and their top 4 wide receivers from last season. Their receiving core is extremely underrated, one of the more underrated receiver cores in the country, because you don't just have 1,000-yard receiver Luther Burden, but you have other guys as well that can make incredible plays. They also have a very good group of running backs that transferred over, and I think their backfield is underrated as well. The only thing that keeps me from putting Missouri at 11-1 or 12-0 is because of the questions they have defensively. I guess I should also mention that they managed to win all 4 of their one-possession games last season, and I don't think all the one-possession games are going to go their way in 2024. They have a revamped defense, which is a bit concerning. They lost their defensive coordinator Blake Baker, and they only returned 5 starters defensively. But a favorable schedule and a very good offense might be enough for them to make the playoffs in 2024, and I do have them at 10-2 with a 6-2 conference record in 2024. At number 5, I have Alabama, and I have them at a 10-2 record and a 6-2 conference record. Alabama will be moving forward without head coach Nick Saban. I think Kalen DeBoer was an excellent hire for Alabama. I don't think they could have found anyone better. He was a winner at Washington, and I expect him to be a winner at Alabama as well. He led Washington to a national championship with 3 and 4 stars on the team. He's already bringing in the number 1 2025 recruiting class in the country for Alabama. He's doing everything right at Alabama so far, but the results will have to be shown in the fall on the field. I do think Alabama will be a contender every year moving forward. Alabama only returns 10 starters from last season. They lost some elite playmakers offensively and defensively. The secondary does have some concerns. Wide receiver Isaiah Bond and safety Caleb Downs both hit the portal as 5 stars. So there are some questions, but this roster is incredibly talented. Some people might not agree with this, but Jalen Milroe is a potential Heisman Trophy winner if he takes the right step forward in Kalen DeBoer's system. Kalen DeBoer has been very active in the portal as well. Alabama has a pretty tough 2024 schedule, but I think Alabama is a legit playoff contender, and they should be a really good team moving forward. And I do have Alabama at 10-2 with a 6-2 conference record. At number 4, I have Tennessee, and I have them with a 10-2 record and a 6-2 conference record. I have Tennessee above Alabama because Tennessee does play Bama at their home place, and I have Tennessee winning that game. I'm really high on this Tennessee team. They took a step back in 2023, only winning 9 games. But I expect Josh Heupel and Tennessee to get back to winning double-digit games in 2024. The defense has shown a lot of growth over the past couple of seasons, and they have James Pierce Jr. back, who is one of the most dynamic pass rushers in the whole country. And I also think the offense is set up to get back closer to what it was in 2022, when they had the number 1 scoring offense in the country. And maybe they won't have the number 1 scoring offense in the country. That's going to be very difficult to do. But what I'm saying is they should be great offensively, and they should have one of the top offenses in the country. The passing game should be very improved with Nico Iamaleava at the quarterback position. They returned Squirrel White and Brew McCoy, and they added a sleeper addition at wide receiver Chris Brazzell from Tulane. Running back Dylan Sampson is poised for a breakout season in 2024, and I think this Tennessee roster is going to be very good on both sides of the ball. I think this will be the most complete team Josh Heupel has had yet, and if Tennessee gets hot, I wouldn't be surprised if they made a run in 2024 to win it all. They added some great transfers, and I'm looking forward to see what the Nico Iamaleava era at Tennessee has in store. And I have Tennessee at a 10-2 record and a 6-2 conference record, which could potentially set them up for a college football playoff berth. At number 3, I have Texas. I have them going 11-1 with a 7-1 conference record. I do have Texas just missing out on the SEC Conference Championship game, but an 11-1 record for sure gets them in the college football playoff. Texas has one of the most talented rosters in all of college football, and they return one of the best quarterbacks in college football, Quinn Ewers. They returned 15 starters from last season. They lost some great wide receivers, but they definitely got some incredible talent at wide receiver from the portal. They added 5-star Isaiah Bond from Alabama to the roster, and they also added Silas Bolden and Matthew Golden, who were both very productive receivers in 2024. They also added 4-star tight end Amari Niblack from Alabama. Texas will have one of the top O-lines in the country, and they have a lot of firepower offensively. This should be one of the top offenses in the country, and they have some questions defensively. They lost 2 defensive tackles to the NFL. They also gave up a ton of passing yards last season, so the secondary has questions. But they added Andrew Mukuba, who is a 4-star safety. Malik Muhammad should continue to develop in the secondary for Texas. They lost some pieces up front, but they added edge rusher Trey Moore, who should be one of the most disruptive edge rushers in the whole country. So he should kind of make up for what they lack at defensive tackle. But they do have guys that could step up, and they have elite playmakers defensively. This is a very talented roster, and I do think they have the talent to be a top team in the SEC right away. I think Texas is back for real, and I think they are going to be a consistently elite team in the SEC. I have Texas at 11-1 with a 7-1 conference record. Their only loss coming to Georgia. I do have Texas just missing out on the SEC championship game. And at number 2, I have Ole Miss with an 11-1 record and a 7-1 conference record. And I actually have Ole Miss beating Georgia at home in the regular season. I think Ole Miss's only loss will be on the road to LSU. I think Ole Miss gets in the SEC championship over Texas because they beat Georgia. This could be a big year for Lane Kiffin and the Ole Miss Rebels. They returned 15 starters. They returned one of the best quarterbacks in the SEC, Jackson Dart. They returned their top wide receivers, Trey Harris and Jordan Watkins. And they also added a very good wide receiver out of the portal, Juice Wells. They have a very underrated running back room. They brought in productive running backs like Henry Parrish and one of the better group of 5 running backs, Rashad Amos. And they also bring back Ulysses Bentley Jr., who was the backup to Quinshon Judkins last season. They lost Quinshon Judkins, but they have a very deep running back room that doesn't get talked about enough. Lane Kiffin brought in the #1 transfer portal class in America. The defense should be a lot better and more physical than what it was in 2023. The new additions of Walter Nolan, Princely U, and many more should help them defensively. And if Ole Miss takes the right step defensively, they could be scary. I'm not calling my shot or anything. I'll do my playoff predictions in a week or so. But I think Ole Miss has a roster capable of winning a national championship. The thing that might hold them back is their depth, because there are teams in college football with a lot more depth than Ole Miss. But regardless, I do expect Ole Miss to build off their 11-2 2023 season. And for 2024, I have them going 11-1 with a 7-1 conference record, and I have them losing the rematch to Georgia in the SEC championship game. So I do have Georgia at number 1 with an 11-1 record and a 7-1 conference record. I had Georgia losing to Ole Miss in the regular season, but I don't see Kirby Smart and Georgia losing twice to Ole Miss. They will bounce back, and they could honestly win that game big, because we know Kirby Smart is going to have his squad fired up to get their revenge in that game. And I wouldn't be surprised if Georgia just absolutely beat down Ole Miss in that rematch. Carson Beck is arguably the best quarterback in college football, and he is back for Georgia for a second year in the system. Georgia has probably the most talented roster in all of college football. I do think you could definitely make an argument for Ohio State to have a more talented roster, but Georgia has the quarterback, they have the coach, and they have the elite defense. So I have Georgia winning the SEC championship game against Ole Miss in a rematch. And I have Georgia going 11-1 with a 7-1 conference record for the 2024 regular season. But you guys let me know what you think about my final SEC standings for the 2024 college football season down in the comments below. I will be doing my 2024 Big Ten predictions for my next video, so be sure to tune in for that video. It will be coming soon. But anyways, that's going to do it for today's video. Let me remind you guys to like the video and also subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. And if you guys love college football, then you will love this channel, because we upload a ton of college football content and we basically cover everything on this channel. So definitely consider subscribing, and also consider checking out my socials down in the description below. But that is going to do it, guys, and peace out.